Good morning, everybody. There's a stray sunbeam that I can't locate coming from behind my curtains. So just ignore the, wish sent from above. And we'll get on with our normally scheduled Sunday live stream. I'm Margaret Pinard. Welcome to my channel. You're on Booktube. And it's Sunday. It's 10 a.m. Pacific time. And that means it's time for my stream. Today's is going to be about October readathons because we are at the end of September. And I went through all of the ones on Pages with Page's channel. She just put up a video, as she usually does, about the next month's readathons. And there were some really cool ones in there, but given that I'm putting out a book and I've got a lot to do, I'm going to stick with the one October readathon that I always try to participate in, successfully or unsuccessfully, and that is Victober. So I've got my shawl ready to don when I start talking about this. But first, welcome. Hello, everybody. I know it's a busy morning, and I know a lot of people are dealing with a whole lot of crap this morning and perhaps even grief. So I spent several hours just watching the personal footage coming out of the aftermath of Tropical Storm Helene last night, and it was pretty horrific, and people are going through a lot. So just wanted to say my heart is with all of y'all over in the Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia. I mean, people have anything from beaches blown away to trees down to power out to no water to houses gone. So in case you're not aware, that happened on Friday. So any assistance, any connections, any cheerful wishes, or whatever you can send their way to any people you know in that area, please do. So after I got absorbed into that and yanked my brain back and was like, I'm over here, I can't do anything in the area. This is the regularly scheduled Victober prep stream, so we'll proceed with that. First, I did want to say, I got this really cool shirt yesterday. I met up with a friend. I don't know. Can you tell? Can you tell what it is? Can you tell what it's going to be yet? Yay, it's a cat shirt. And yes, we're childless cat ladies for Kamala. So I did my good turn by sending lawn signs to some family members, and my friend did me a good turn by supporting with a shirt because I'm a childless cat lady and proud of it. So, just your little reminder, politics is real life, and we're not afraid of addressing that here on the channel. So, if that's up your alley, join us for more. It's going to be a rocky last, I think, 37 days until the election in the U.S. And if you're not in the U.S., I'm sure you have crap to deal with as well, natural disaster-wise or politics-wise. So let us know in the comments how we can learn about the world. So, Victober. So this is a 9-year running readathon on Booktube. It is now hosted. We've had some evolution of host channels. It has always been hosted by Katie at Books and Things, and now it's also hosted by Kate Howe and Blatantly Bookish and Scally Dandling with Roz. So they've got some prompts, and I think it's pretty straightforward. Read a Victorian book with religion as a component. Read a Victorian book that plays with form. They're pretty broad. They can be applied to lots of different things. Read a Victorian work that was originally serialized. Read a Victorian work that is a drama. So read, watch, or listen to a play. And then a group challenge, which is in tribute to 2 former hosts who are no longer with us, who have passed away since the first Victober 9 years ago, which is a Victorian work by Wilkie Collins and or Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. So lots of different directions. If you've seen other videos being put out, it doesn't mean it has to be like the classic, right? You've got dramas, you've got plays, you've got gothic, which is sort of like dark academia vibes. You've got mysteries. So Arthur Conan Doyle's a mystery writer with his series. Um, you've got literary for sure, but also satirical social critique. I tend to like that one. Um, and so what I'm going to do today is tell you some recommendations. I've got 5, and some TBR pile of possibilities. I've got 5. So the past few years, I've managed one book for Victober because it's a busy month, and I've had varying success. So this is why I've sort of like drawn back the expectations for Victober. I think I've found my books that I love, and I'm not really finding other books to love as I go farther afield and experiment. I mean, it's good for like range and whatnot, but I'm not being swept away. I'm being annoyed and perturbed and frustrated. So we're going to try to find a book that will sweep me away and I'll actually enjoy this year. And I've got 2 goals. So I'm not going to be trying to do all the prompts. I'm going to be trying to read Victorian books that satisfy 2 goals for me this year. The first one is read down that owned TBR. I got a little overexcited at the beginning of my Booktube career 4+ years ago, and snapped up Victorian books willy-nilly, let's say. And I haven't read them, and they're just sitting on my shelf, and I need to decide, right? So I've unhauled some. I think I'm gonna unhaul another, a Henry James, The Other House. It just doesn't sound like my kind of book, even though Edith Wharton and therefore Henry James like should be around the same taste. I don't know. I don't know. I read the book and I'm not excited about it, so I may just unhaul that one. Speaking of unhauls, I foisted an unhaul on Amy at A Star Reads, and she just put up a video about the books. So that was pretty funny for Pick-a-Pong-a-thon, one of her vlogs. But hopefully she'll enjoy some of those. And yeah, so let me go check in with the chat, say hello to friends. We have a Tiffany this morning. Good morning. Love that shirt. Thank you. Thank you, Brianna. And we've got a Katya. Katya's here early. Early for me, I guess, or not for her. Hello, hello. I've been spreading the gospel, Katya. There's a Eyes on Indie channel, and I think with her and maybe with Mide Between the Pages, I've been dropping your name in the comments because like they're translated lit folks. So I want to get them to know you in the comments. I thought that'd be fun. Okay, so I went through my stuffed full shelf of Victorian reads. And in case you don't know, because you're not immersed like a Victorian historical fiction writer like I am, the Victorian period is from 1837, when Victoria ascended the throne, to 1901, when she died. So that period exerted a lot of influence over the world, from Britain to the far corners of the earth, which I think is the title of a book. And so it's a very interesting period to examine literarily. Oh, my other goal. So owned TBR. I want to make decisions about these books, read them or give them away. But the other goal for my Victober this year is to trace the tropes. So in a little literary criticism type of way, I know that Victorian literature influenced a lot of modern literature and then, you know, what we have today. And so I want to, when I read through my books this year, my possibilities, see if I can see the birth of some of the things in today's literature and sort of make those connections. So that'll be my little like back of the mind goal for the ones that I'm reading. So recommendations first. Let's do this. I made some graphics that I'm going to share through bookshop.org tomorrow, but this is your preview. There we go. And these are my recommendations. So they're not, I don't have books with the prettiest covers, so I made this a little bit prettier. I don't have a pretty version of Jane Eyre, but this is my first Victorian love, shall we say, and the copy I have is falling apart, and I've actually taken pages that have fallen out and put them on my wall for decoration. So, I love Jane Eyre as a sophomore in high school, and while I have learned subsequently that there are problems with it in terms of representation and voice and all that sort of jazz. I mean, it's still a story that will stay with me forever and ignited part of my love for literature, so I can't really leave that out. So, as a recommendation to read now, this year, in the year of our Lord 2024, I would say maybe read it in tandem with, oh, and of course I just blanked it, Jean Rhys's book, Rhys, and she has sort of a deconstructed POV of the West Indian woman in the book, looking at the same story. So if you want a little bit more balance to get like multiple voices, I would say read Jane Eyre with, and it's something with waters, and I can't remember. Someone help me in the comments. But yeah, so first favorite, gotta put it down here. The next one here to the right of Jane Eyre is Zola. This is one I just read a couple months ago, L'Argent. So this is a French writer, Émile Zola, and he is credited with writing naturalist books and like being part of the realist movement. And L'Argent means money. So that's the translation of the book's title. I listened to this book and it was just forearmed, very long. Zola books may not all be that long, but this one was representative of the series. So he has a sprawling series, kind of like a soap opera, where he will focus on one period of time and one branch of his cast and go into much, much detail about their doings, their lives, their foibles, their mistakes, their feelings, their backstories. So if that is your type of like sprawling soap opera, there are other Victorian authors like this too, but you also want a tinge of like social critique and irony and like how the world works, really, how the world turns. You could go to a much worse writer than Zola. So I definitely recommend that. And I'm glad I tried L'Argent from Libro.fm. So moving to the top row of my recommendations, I've got Anthony Trollope, Barchester Towers. So this one, it's not as beat up of a copy. This one is the one I actually read. It's an omnibus, so my tags are only in the first part of the book, because I read Barchester Towers, which is one in a series, but I didn't get the full series in this omnibus, funnily enough. So just like Zola, actually, Anthony Trollope has lots of novels in the Barchester Towers world. And so I think I've read 2, and they're enjoyable. There is a note of religion. So if you're looking to satisfy that prompt, it definitely talks about the clergy. It definitely talks about livings and expectations and social status with the church, which is pretty cool. The Anglican church here. And yeah, I like this cover. I mean, it's a painting. It's a minister with a glass of wine and some other gentlemen dining at a table. So yeah, I like Anthony Trollope's writing and observations and sharp wit. I'll say he's very funny, and yeah, I definitely enjoyed the 2 that I read. So one of his is going on my TBR, which I'll get to in the second half. Next to Barchester Towers, we've got an Elizabeth Gaskell. It is this one, which again is not the best. Oh, come on. Where's the light coming through? I can't stand it. Hold on. Just settle down, will you? Curtain to stay in place. Okay, the light is gone. Sorry, Sunbeam. All right, so this is the cover that I have, and I got this used. It's a Wordsworth classic. It's It's fine. It's not the level of the movie or the TV series adaptation, however, which I loved. So, Elizabeth Gaskell, another great writer. I liked that she was a friend of Charlotte Bronte, so my love for Jane Eyre and all her, uh, really beautiful moral sentiments and about women's independence. I like Elizabeth Gaskell's take on these things. She doesn't sweep me away quite as much, but the adaptation did that pretty well. Um, this is about North and South, meaning the Industrial Revolution has come to Britain, and it's really fostered a difference between people who are industrializing in the North and like the movers and shakers of the economy, and people who are leaning on their laurels or staying in the agricultural past in the South. And so she's contrasting these two lifestyles, the values that are changing, and pitting them against each other as a romantic couple. So it's glorious. It's like, speaking of tracing the tropes, it's giving enemies to lovers and in a delightful way. So if that's your thing, I would definitely recommend North and South. Um, does it play with form? I don't know. Was it originally serialized? I don't believe so. But religion is part of the inciting incident for this story. I don't know that it's like an overarching element, but it definitely plays an important part at the beginning because it is what spurs the pulling together of these worlds for these people to meet each other. So a religious scruple, shall we say. So that was delightful. And then the other book I have here, which is a green cover, which is a pretty fabric hardcover on my graphic here. I have a much cheaper version in person, which is Elizabeth Gaskell again, Cranford. And I think I just watched a video by someone who and I can't remember who it was. It was a bigger channel too, but I was talking about Cranford because they didn't know what it was about, and so I gave them a little rundown. And I do like this cover. I mean, it's a cheaper version, but it's a paperback. It's a painting of a woman with a child and an older woman who's nicely dressed, trying to make nice with the child. I like it for its costume details. But Cranford is about a small town, and Elizabeth Gaskell's themes are consistent. She is talking about the railroad coming to town, different people coming to town, and how it affects the small circle of basically women who rule the town. I think the original conceit is something like it's only women who live in this town, which is sort of weird, but then you learn like why and how their relations come back, and um the backstory of some of the characters and why they're alone. And so it's just very nice. It's like I was sort of comparing it to May of the Moderns book, a modern period book after this. Now I can't remember. I have a hardcover version of it. And it's also like Tales of a Little Village where people are sort of in each other's business, but for the best reasons. And yeah, so Cranford was delightful, very funny, and I would say it's more of an Austen-esque book than North and South is. So if you are a Jane Austen lover and you're kind of going, Victorian, where do I find my Austen humor? I would say Cranford is pretty delightful. So those are my 5 recommendations and why. And you can, of course, get them on bookshop.org with one of my links. So I think that's pretty easy to remember. TLT_ bookshop. I think that's the right link. If it's not, let me know. But that's where I have all my curated lists for recommendations and things that I'm reading. So there you go. And then now we can move into the fun part, what I'm going to be reading for Victober. So I have another graphic here, which is the trials. So we'll see. These are the ones that I'm hoping will satisfy my Victober tastes, right? Because it's been hard. 3 Men in a Boat was not the thing. It just did not agree with me at all. I wanted to expunge it from my person. Super annoying. So these are the books that I'm going to try to love this October. We'll see which one I get into first. So starting with some biblioserendipity. Oh, did I? Yeah, I did it right. Okay. Biblioserendipity. Where did I put it? This one. Okay. So y'all know I just finished Master, Slave, Husband, Wife, which is a modern historical book, not fiction, by Ilian Wu. And it talks about the escape of two fugitive slaves who were married in Georgia, I believe, and made their way to the north disguised as a white master and a black servant because one of them could pass as white. And they successfully escaped their slavery status, got to New England, but then the heat was on because it was just pre-Civil War and there was the Fugitive Slave Act politics coming into play. So they ended up getting into Canada and then sailing for the UK. They eventually did return, but they had a very interesting career in the UK post their escape. So that was a great book that I talked about 2 wrap-ups ago, I think. And one of the people that helped them once they got to Boston was William Wells Brown, who had made his own escape a couple years prior and was a celebrated speaker on the anti-slavery abolitionist speaker circuit. He also escaped to the UK, and then when they got there, they joined up again and did another tour. William Wells Brown. Doesn't the name sound familiar? Why, yes, I happened to pick up a book of his, which is billed as the first African-American novel, which is crazy. You've probably heard of Phillis Wheatley, who's an African-American poet in the 18th century, I think in the Boston area or somewhere in New England. But the first African-American novel is attributed to William Wells Brown, and I happened to seize a copy from somewhere recently, and I didn't realize because I hadn't read Master, Slave, Husband, Wife yet. This is a Penguin classic, this version of it. It's just different from the one on the bottom row here, and it's called Clotel, or The President's Daughter. And I grew up having read Wolf by the Years, which is a historical fiction for young adults that talked about a slave daughter of Thomas Jefferson and how she was dealing with her choices because she could pass as white, but she had this sort of difficult legacy. So that was one of my first introductions to African American history and colorism and racism and early American history and how our presidents were not the infallible beings that maybe we were taught. So I read that when I was maybe like 11 or 12, right? And this is like the original version dealing with the same character. So this is maybe 50 years after Thomas Jefferson. And imagining Clotel, or a daughter of Thomas Jefferson, and how she would have navigated her times. It's an 1853 novel that starts off with a slave auction. So pretty stark. He makes his title character the daughter of Thomas Jefferson, and Brown takes advantage of a scandalous and until recently unconfirmed rumor. So yeah, basically like this terrible institution of slavery messes with our humanity on both ends, right? Both as slave owners and slaves. They're treated horribly as slaves, but also the slave owners are corrupted by this responsibility for human life, which shouldn't be theirs. So it's a really interesting examination of that in this context. So this is high on my list to read, especially because it's got that biblioserendipity of having the author be from a book that I just read, which is pretty cool. So, Katya is saying, I have not read Cranford yet. It's a fun one and it's short. So, the tone does force you to slow down because you're kind of getting into this winding small town way of thinking. But I found it delightful and very humorous. So I hope that agrees with other people as well. And I am not the only one who did not appreciate Jerome K. Jerome, 3 Men in a Boat. I liked actually another author of the period who did a nonfiction memoir of sailing around the UK. And I can't remember his name at the moment. He's a famous dude, but for his fiction, and I read a nonfiction boat-based, and it was actually more interesting, I thought, even though I had to wade through a lot of like sailing terminology. I have no idea. So first TBR priority is going to be Clotel. Then to the right of Clotel, we've got some more Anthony Trollope. So author that I know that I like. And in my omnibus, which is not the same cover, I did not go for the same covers because there's so many versions, is Miss Mackenzie. So Miss Mackenzie, a middle-aged spinster, is left a modest fortune and has to choose between 3 very different suitors. That's what Longmeadow Press has summed it up as. Mackenzie calls to me because it's a Scottish name, and middle-aged spinster with a modest fortune. That calls to me because my new title is actually Orla Rafferty Seeks Her Fortune, and my new fall novel, historical fiction, is going to be about a 30-something widow who has a modest income, but then it's put in danger. So instead of talking about suitors, which is more of a romantic bent, my book is going to be talking about a woman fighting for her life income, her sustainability, her agency, right? And so if you want to find out more about that, I've got a link for that as well. You can follow along for free on my Patreon, where I'm putting up blog posts where I drop the reveals, as well as audiobook chapters of my backlist. So that's all free. And then the benefit tiers where you pay for stuff are handwritten letters, and we'll see what else is coming. But for the moment, that's it. So that is there for anyone who's interested in checking it out. So we move to the top row of my pile of possibilities here, and it's a little hard to see maybe because it's dark. This is the cover I picked for Walter Scott. So this is actually, I'm going to take this down for a second to show you my cover, because my Walter Scott cover is much more impressive. It's the Waverley novels in another bind up, another omnibus. But like, it's got gold foil and a leather cover. It's seriously old. This is one of a set. I don't have the whole set, obviously, but this has 4 different books of the Waverley novels in it. And the one that I was interested in is called The Surgeon's Daughter. Okay, this is so cool. I'm going to see if I can share this. So this book was published in 1869 by D. Appleton and Company, 90, 92, and 94 Grand Street in 1869. So the book is from much earlier, but the this copy you can see is from 1869. It's got a piece of onion paper to protect the whatever this is called. It's not a woodcut, but it's not tin type. It's like, there's a specific word for this that I'm just not remembering at the moment, but the illustration is a black and white with pen. And look at that costume. Isn't that pretty? This is Margaret Ramsay from The Fortunes of Nigel illustration. But what's extra cool is at the very beginning, on the flyleaf, we have John Snyder, Chillicothe, I think, Ohio, January 1872. So there's like an inscription of when this person got the book, and it's like 150 years ago. So that was pretty cool. So I got this a long time ago, and I haven't read it because it's got like Bible printing, meaning 2 columns per page. Like, what the fuck? And it's tiny. So this is going to be a pain. But as part of the owned TBR, read it or lose it, I want to try. Like, if I can't ever read this because it gives me a headache, I want to know that and just maybe like let it go to someone else who can read it with a magnifying glass. But yeah, I want to read one of the Waverley novels. I've shied away from them because it's small, but also because I think I tried one of these, and what's weird is that Sir Walter Scott is one of the first people to do historical fiction, right? So he's in the Victorian era early on, like 1815, 1820s, and he's writing about the medieval era. So he's like reaching into this sort of mystical past that I don't think they had a lot of information about at that time, but creating legends, creating his own folk heroes and like raising them up so that like from his spot in Scotland, he's sort of helping create the British culture, right? I mean, he's not writing about King Arthur. He's writing about Rob Roy and other dashing heroes of the 1400s, 1500s, 1600s. And that's not really my era. So I don't know like if it's going to be my thing. That's another reason I'm sort of hesitating. But I hear he's quite verbose. So not only is the font going to be small, but the sentences are going to be like a page long. And so I'm like, oh, so please help me through this. This is a goal. I do want to read some Sir Walter Scott, you know, from the Scottish connection, from the Victorian connection, from the historical fiction writer connection. I just need help. I just need some moral support. So please help me. Oh, Tiffany, is it a daguerreotype? No, because a daguerreotype is a photograph. It's a black and white photograph that you can colorize. And this is actually like pen and ink, a drawing. So I can't remember. I know there's a specific word for it, but I can't remember. But good guess. Thank you. Okay. So back to the pile of possibilities for myself here. We've got 3 down, 2 left. The middle one is George Gissing. So George Gissing is a new author to me, and I've actually got 2 of his works because Jim recommended The Odd Women a long time ago, and I got it. I just didn't read it yet. So that's one of the ones that's sitting on the shelf. But before I could read The Odd Women, I actually bought another George Gissing because I saw it and snapped it up used. This is New Grub Street by George Gissing, the 1901 revised text, which I don't know what that means. This is a large format paperback that I got. And the reason New Grub Street called to me is that you may know I work with a volunteer collaborative called A Mighty Blaze, and a lot of those writers are Boston-based and do freelance classes at or have taken classes at a writing collective there called Grub Street. So they have taken as their patron saint or inspiration George Gissing's book title. New Grub Street is about writers, which is why I thought it would be really cool and why I skipped it ahead of The Odd Women. Let's see. Wait, what? Why is it talking about a French translation? There is no better English novel about being a novelist than George Gissing's New Grub Street. For the first time, Gissing's revised version of the novel has been made available by acclaimed Gissing scholar and biographer Paul Delaney. This edition incorporates the revisions made for the French translation, never before seen by the book's English readers. It's a little confusing. So New Grub Street was a real street in the 18th century. It was just around the corner from Whitecross Street. So penniless writers would have bought their old clothes and gristly meat there. Oh, gosh. See, this, like the details in this are going to be lovely for me. So this is also highly enjoyable, a little bit easier to read. So this is probably like second after Clotel, maybe above Waverly. So I'm very excited about that, both because of the Mighty Blaze connection and like writers back in the day. I think that'll be pretty fun. And that will be something that I'd want to like live tweet and like comment on. I think that'd be fun. Katya says, I cannot support. I loathe minuscule typeset and verbose prose. I know, but I want to just give it a try so I can like say that I tried and like I don't like it rather than just shying away. At least you got Gissing. I read New Grub Street. Really good. Oh, good. Excellent. Okay. Jim came in. Hello. And Katya says, I plan to read Odd Women. Let me know if you want to buddy read it when you pick it up. Okay. Not this year, but yeah, maybe later. That'll be a good one. And Jim, I did already name drop your name when I mentioned George Gissing. You were the reason I picked him up. So, and I have two of his books. Women Working as Secretaries. Yes. There's another, it's a Jewish Victorian author who wrote The Romance of a Shop, something Levy, Deborah Levy, maybe. And that's been on my list, but I haven't found a copy of it. So I'm excited. Women in the workforce in the Victorian era is like a little fun avenue for me. Okay, so we've got New Grub Street down, and then the final one here is an author I already know. It's Elizabeth Gaskell, Know and Love, and I have Mary Barton on the list, which Jim has also read. Mary Barton is more specifically about a woman in the workforce, so kind of like The Odd Women, but earlier. It's set in Manchester at the start of the Hungry 40s, so the 1840s. And it's a sympathetic, truthful portrayal of ordinary people struggling with rapid social change in overcrowded cities. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound like something that I would be called to? Yes, it does. So this has been on my list for a while, and I just haven't been able to prioritize picking it up. So, I mean, I do have a lot to get done this month, this October month for my book, but do you think we can get through 4 books for Victober? I mean, the Waverly is going to be last on the list. It is. But the other 4 all seem really compelling and made for me. So let's see. We'll see. But that is my TBR list, and I can take that down now. Yes. Anything else that I needed to cover? Oh, let's see. I don't think so. So, Victober, recommendations at the beginning, my TBR/POP, pile of possibilities, second half here. And like I said, my overall goals are going to be read books that are on my shelf to get them either sorted into the favorites pile or get rid of, and to track the tropes. So if I'm going to be reading social critique, I'm going to really appreciate it because this is speaking to my own novel to come this year. And if I'm going to be reading about writers, also social critique, but I'm going to have to be speaking to my Mighty Blaze folks with this one. And if I'm going to be talking about colorism in the United States and race-based policies and stuff like that, are there tropes that I've seen in modern novels or black fantasy that can trace back to how we treated Black people in novels in 1853? I don't know, maybe. I thought that'd be an interesting filter, an interesting exploration. So we'll see. And then maybe I will have some more space on my Victorian shelf by the end of October. Maybe. So yeah. Thank you for being here for the Sunday live stream. What is coming next? I'm going to have a pub date for you. My next reveal is going to be my pub date. I'm going to have to choose a date, which is hard for me. So if you're on Patreon, you can sign up for free, as I said. Otherwise, thank you so much for being here. I'm here twice a week, and I've started an author interview series on Fridays. So if you're curious about other authors that are treating social change themes in their fiction alive today, but maybe have something to say about Victober, Victorian literature, I will be talking with 3 of them in October on Fridays. So subscribe if you're interested in that sort of thing, and tell me what you're reading for Victober and if either of my 2 goals align with yours. That would be interesting to hear. So thanks for being here, everybody. I appreciate the likes and comments, and hopefully I'll see you again soon after some happy reading. Take care.